Who Killed Julie is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is highly advised. This episode of Who Killed Julie is brought to you by my horror novel, 12 Deaths of Christmas. My debut novel, Chasing the Demon, a thriller adapted from Season 1 of my Subject Found podcast. My new book, Novel Idea to Podcast, How to Sell More Books Through Podcasting. Available on Amazon now.
I talked to Rachel about him, but you know how she can be. She's been such a bitch about everything. I don't know if she'd even care to listen anymore. And Dad, I can't talk to him. Not about this. It'd break his heart, and I can't do that to him. I won't hurt him like that. But something has to change. I can't go on like this. He's getting controlling, and I will not put up with that bullshit again. Julie's Journal, December 8th, 2013. Julie McLemore was a woman who lived and loved. She was a mother with two very precious boys who, I imagine, miss her dearly. She was an educated and intelligent woman who woke up each and every day to try to make the world a better place, not only for her two sons, but the thousands of Washingtonians she impacted in her state job. She strove to give everything to ensure that they, also, woke up each and every day to a world that was a little bit better than the day before. She was a daughter and a disappointment. And she spent the majority of her adult life trying to make up for the things she did. The things that other people convinced her were wrong, but to her, were very necessary. Julie was a woman who was judged at every turn, but she was a warrior. A woman who continued forward, pressed on against the most severe and taxing circumstances. Julie was a paragon of persistence and hope. This is the story of Julie. This is the story of us. I'm Emerald Johnson, and this is the final episode of Who Killed Julie. There's something to be said for a father's love for his daughter, something transcendent and beautiful, if not slightly naive. One of the more astonishing revelations I had while covering Julie's story was the fortitude of Walter McLemore. Whereas other fathers might ignore or dismiss their daughters because of the things they do, Walter didn't. While some might guilt and shame their flesh and blood for being sexually assaulted, Walter defended and championed her. Even in death, Julie's memory provides Walter with a happiness that can't be quantified. She gives him a strength I doubt he would otherwise have, if not for knowing his daughter for who she was. And it's for those reasons that I want to kick off this final episode of Who Killed Julie with my last conversation with Walter.
Come on in.
Thank you, Walter. I hope I'm not intruding.
No, not at all. What can I do for you?
Well, I think I'm getting close to the end of telling Julie's story, and I wanted to have at least one more conversation with you before I finished it.
Well, good. As long as you remember what I said about doing right by my little girl. Hoping everyone has been helpful?
Well, almost everyone.
Can't say as I'm surprised that some people are still pig-headed. I'm sorry you're having trouble with some folks.
It's fine. It's sort of expected when you do things like this. But you have been wonderful, and I want to thank you for that.
Ain't no trouble. Just glad I can help and be part of this. Hoping this'll tell the right story. Really tell the world who Julie was. It's important to me.
I know, Walter. It's coming together nicely, and I think you'll be very proud of it when it's done.
As long as it tells the truth about her life, that's what I want to be hearing.
I can promise you that it's going to tell the story as true as I can, as true as any of the information I've been given. Are you okay with that?
Of course, don't know any father that doesn't want the truth told about their child. Not good ones, anyways.
Even if the truth is uncomfortable?
Even then, the truth is what it is. Ain't nothing you or me gonna say that's going to change it. I just want my little girl remembered for the good person she was. You make sure you do that.
I will, Walter. I will. She was an amazing person, very highly spoken of.
Well, you be sure to be including all that stuff she did for others. All the volunteer stuff she did for the local food banks. You make sure you put that in there.
I will try, I promise. She's done a lot for people throughout her life. Caleb told me about some wonderful things during her time at Syracuse, things that she did for others, even when she had her own pressures. Rachel told me how Julie basically carried the morale of the staff at her office on her back, and how she enriched so many lives. She was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, that's my little girl. She did that all throughout school, even when she was little. Always pulling other students along, the slower ones, the kids who struggled. Don't mean to be mean or nothing, but that's the kind of girl she was. If she saw someone struggling, she was the first one to reach out and offer help. Teachers used to love that. Imagine, 'cause it made their jobs all that easier.
Yeah, well, if this story has taught me anything about her, it's that part of her never changed.
Nope. Julie was like that all the way until the end. That's why I don't be understanding why someone would do what they did to her.
You still don't think it was Roderick Alba?
Don't know. Now, I'm not a professional. I don't know everything that was found, so I don't close the door on anything. But I'm not so convinced the person who really hurt Julie isn't still out there somewhere. Someone doing something like that to her. So vicious the way she was left. Ain't no human did that. No, that's what an animal does. And Roderick, did you read the news about him, about Roderick?
Yeah, read a lot about him.
So you saw what he claimed.
That he was innocent? Is that what you're talking about?
That'd be it. Talked to a few of them reporters. Did you know that? No, I guess you wouldn't. But I did. I talked to a number of them, actually. All of them interviewed Roderick at some point before he killed himself. Off the record, they all said the same thing.
What was it? What did they all say?
Now remember, this is off the record. They wouldn't be saying this out in public where others might be hearing them. But each one of them said the same thing. They all didn't believe that Roderick did it, Miss Johnson. Not a single one of them.
Really? If not him, then who? Who did they think did it?
Didn't be saying. They'd just be writing his story, and in his story he was an innocent man.
And you believe that?
Oh, I don't know what to believe. Don't really care none either. We got a letter from him. Think I told you that. Now remember, this was a man already rotting in a cell, and he's begging us to believe him that he wouldn't hurt my Julie. I met him once. Didn't tell anyone, but I did, face to face. I looked into his face. Saw it in his eyes. Didn't look like the eyes of someone who could do something like that, swearing to you as I'm standing here. He told me everyone was looking in the wrong place if they wanted to find out what really happened to her. And he... Only thing I'm honestly interested in is her story. That's it. If you do a good job with it, then I'll be at peace because I'll know Julie's spirit is too.
There are some things in her story that people won't like, Walter.
I don't be caring about them. Those people, they ain't got clean sheets either. All of them, all of us, have things we don't want people outside our homes be knowing. Julie was no different than the rest of us, and that's what made her so special. She didn't hide that stuff and present the world with some kind of painted face or nothing. She just was who she was, nothing more. People can either hate her or love her for that. Hopefully they'll be loving her for it. There's enough hate in the world.
But she didn't tell you everything, at least not at first.
Nope, she didn't. Couldn't blame her either. I was a different man then, you see. Not the man you're sat next to now. Not the man I'll be tomorrow. We all grow, Miss Johnson, me included. It's one of my greater regrets not growing earlier. Not being what Julie needed me to be.
Yet she shared so much with you, Walter. A lot of these things couldn't have been easy for her, but yet she still talked to you about them.
Not when she likely wanted to. And that's my fault. I should have been there for her. I should have been her father. I failed her. If there's one thing that comes out of this project to yours, one thing at all, I hope it's that every parent who hears this thinks about what they be doing to their own children. What kind of judgments they place on their kids about what they be doing, especially as they get older. The law says the kids be adults at 18, but it don't matter if they're 38, they're still your kids. You'll always see them like that. I sure saw Julie like that. But that don't be meaning it's right either, 'cause if there's one thing any parent listening to this could learn from me, it's that you need to adapt to your adult children, not the other way around.
But you did. You did adjust.
I did, but not quickly enough. Not soon enough for my little girl. Can you be imagining what it must have been like for her at Syracuse? All those nights sitting in her room alone, struggling with what happened to her, what those bastards did. Ain't no one there to help her work through it. Even if there was, they weren't family. No one should have to be going through that without family. If I'd been doing my job, Julie would have reached out to me. I would have been there for her. My ass could have been sitting in that dorm room with her on those nights instead of her fighting through that alone. That's the failure of a father right there, I'll tell you. So if people be taking one thing away from all this, I want it to be that. You tell them that. You promise.
I will, Walter. I will. Why do you think Julie never told Angela about everything?
What? About the bad stuff that happened to her?
Yes, those and the pregnancy.
I don't know. Wish I had a better answer for you, but that's all I got. Remember what I said about your adult children being adults? I've tried to understand why a lot of things happened the way they did. And in that time, one thing I've understood is that I'll never understand everything. I could sit around every night and think away every if, and but, and get nowhere. 3 or 4 hours a night when I could sleep, figuring out nothing the whole time. The truth is, Miss Johnson, ain't none of that gonna bring Julie back. It's all just wasted energy. Now, don't get me wrong. For months afterwards, after her disappearance, that's exactly what I did. I might be sounding like I got it all figured out, but it took me a long time to get to this point. And then it all changed. I stopped wondering and just started remembering. Because I missed my little girl. And I still do.
I gotta say, Walter, you've dealt with this much better than Angela has.
Meaning?
I don't think she's properly mourned yet. She's still in denial about a lot of things.
Yeah, well, she's got to be. Keeping closed up protects her from having to look at herself. And if there's one thing Angela doesn't like, I promise you, it's having to take a look at what she's done to others. The way she's mistreated others.
Ever think she'll come around?
No, probably not.
You sound pretty sure about that.
She's more than justified my opinion. That damn woman. Heart o' ice, let me tell you. When I told her... No, don't matter. Ain't too worried about whether or not she comes around, to be honest. I've moved on with my life. She has too. Just like I hope this damn city does after they hear this. We all need to. Julie deserves to rest.
He was an interesting man, Walter. A loving father who has mourned the loss of his daughter, but kept her alive in his own fashion. No one can fault him for the way he remembers Julie. Of anyone I talked to, Walter was the most grounded and sensible. He was a man who started life with no privilege and no opportunity and provided for his family in the best way he could. He made mistakes along the way, mistakes that he readily admitted to, and he never hid behind pretenses and fabrications. What you saw was what you got with Walter. And I have to believe that there is a large part of Julie's story, the positive parts, that can be credited to him. Julie would have told the world about who she was if she believed the world would value her for it. The thing about her, though, was that she was smart enough to understand that the world wouldn't, that it couldn't accept a single mother of two small boys doing what she did. Before I share my last conversations with Caleb and Rachel, I had one last visit with Angela. I think you'll be interested. If not entertained, here it is.
What is it, Miss Johnson?
Good morning to you too, Angela. Do you have a few minutes?
As long as you make it quick.
I will. I'm putting the finishing touches on the project and wanted to make sure that we had covered everything that you wanted covered.
I've had my say. There's nothing else to say, especially to you. I'm not even sure I want you to say anymore.
Why?
Because all this has done nothing but bring up things that shouldn't be brought up.
Like what?
It doesn't matter. This was supposed to be about Julie and who killed her. It was supposed to tell the truth. Isn't that what you were chasing?
No. The entire project was to tell the real story about Julie's life, her disappearance, and everything that led up to it. That's what this project was always about. I'm sure you can understand and appreciate that.
That doesn't justify having to talk about some of these things.
Angela, everything I'm covering is what really happened. These things are real. They're things she dealt with, things that happened to her. Not including them is not only being dishonest to my profession, but it's being disingenuous to Julie's story.
I don't care. It's being disrespectful to me. I don't expect you to understand this, Emerald. But when you're a member of a church community, you have to put that community first. People struggle with so many things every single day, and the members of my church family have a lot of struggles of their own. They're good people with big hearts, and if this were to get out, then they would feel obligated to be there for me when they have so many things going on in their own lives. I can't ask that of them.
Are you sure it's about them?
I don't appreciate that question.
I'm shocked that you're so resistant to being part of a project that's focusing on your daughter's life, all because you want to protect your image for some members of a congregation.
That's it. I'm not going to sit here and tolerate this anymore. You have no respect for other people. In fact, I don't even give you permission to use my voice or anything I say in this project. You know, it's sick what you're doing, really. I mean, who writes about this kind of stuff? What sort of twisted person glorifies those horrible things? Do you have any shame at all?
Trust me, Angela, I'm totally okay with the work I've done on your daughter's story.
You're not making this about Julie. You're making it about you and this goddamn feminist agenda you have.
This has everything to do with Julie and nothing to do with you. And that's the truth of the matter. That's why you're so resistant. You were okay about this project until I wanted to talk about things you weren't comfortable with. I've tried to help you open up about Julie's past and the problems between you two that affected your relationship, but you've been unwilling to do any of that. I was hoping we could have this one last conversation so you could tell your side, so listeners will be able to understand what happened between the two of you that prevented Julie from feeling like she could share everything with you. I'd hope you'd be willing to do that. Obviously, I was wrong.
I've already told you. Julie was wayward. She was selfish and went off to that school and came back a completely different person. Walter and I raised her with proper values, and all of that hard work was undone in just a couple of years around those people. Do you even understand what that's like for a parent? To invest in your child so deeply, only to watch it all fall apart when they get around bad influences and allow other people to facilitate taking a bad path in life, a sinful path. Do you know what that's like?
You know I'm not a parent, and I've tried to appreciate
You can't appreciate it then. In fact, none of you can. You haven't gone through what I've gone through. You haven't made the sacrifices I've had to make. You haven't had to live through what I've had to live through. So how can you possibly appreciate any of this?
Then help me, Angela. I'm not sure why you're being so combative. I really wanted to make this a cordial conversation so that everyone can appreciate what you had with Julie. You're not alone in that struggle. Plenty of parents have problematic relationships with their adult children. It's not anything new. You're not unique. People will empathize and understand.
I'm not looking for their understanding. The only understanding I want is that of the Lord. That's the only thing that matters. Caleb called me this morning.
He what?
Called me. He wanted to apologize. I guess he wanted to extend an olive branch.
Really? That's interesting. Did he say why?
I'm not going to share with you. But that's what I'm going to take away from all of this, Emerald. Nothing in this has been rewarding. You insisted on talking about things that shouldn't be talked about, and I'm not going to let myself get upset anymore. I've got my husband and the women at the church to help me get through this. I hope you're happy with what you've chosen to do with Julie's story, because it's made me incredibly unhappy. At least I know Caleb is okay, and that he's seen the sense in his wrongdoing. He's finding his way back. If that's the only thing I get out of this project of yours, I'll take it. It might be too late for Julie, but at least there's still hope for his redemption. Emerald, I'm praying for you. Don't bother me anymore.
Angela was never going to be easy. I knew that from the first time I watched her talk to that customer in the farmer's market all those weeks ago. She was a difficult woman, firmly entrenched in her belief system, unmovable by evidence or persuasion. Angela knew what she knew, and that was all that mattered to her in the world. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. I've included her throughout this project, if for no other reason than to show you what Julie dealt with throughout her life. This isn't intended to defame Angela. It was never about her, and it will never be about her. This is Julie's story, but the impact Angela had on her cannot be overlooked. The decisions that Julie made throughout her life, the circumstances and consequences she faced, a lot of them were conceived in those early childhood conversations between mother and daughter. Those conversations formed the young woman who headed east to Syracuse University and had her life forever altered. And that can't be ignored. I won't ignore it. There are 2 conversations remaining in this series: Caleb and Rachel. What these conversations hold is, it might be difficult to listen to. If you are not prepared to hear disturbing details, then I encourage you to switch this off for now. I won't mince words. What follows includes information about mental, physical, and emotional abuse, including sexual assault. It might be offensive to some, but it is part of Julie's story. It needs to be told. So, let's start with Caleb.
Throughout this series of Who Killed Julie, we will be partnering with Safe Place in Olympia, Washington to raise funds for their operations. Safe Place provides crucial services to survivors of domestic and sexual violence. They offer a 24-hour helpline, 24-hour emergency shelter and sexual assault response, advocacy support groups, legal clinics, children and youth programs, prevention education, community outreach, and training. Please see the donation link in the episode notes. Help us raise as much as we possibly can for Safe Place in Olympia, Washington, to serve people who need them now. Today, Olympia, Washington. Tomorrow, your city. Let's change the world.
So why did you call her then?
I don't know. It feels like the right thing to do. Listen, I need to start making peace with more than just Angela, Rachel, too, Julie's ghost, myself. Angela was just the start of a long road for me. I need to start moving forward, Emerald. And this thing you're doing, it woke me up.
Guess I'm glad to hear that then. I think Julie would be happy as well.
I think she would too. So this is it then?
Almost.
Mind me asking who else you need to talk to?
Just Rachel. She's the only one I haven't wrapped things up with. Caleb? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Emerald,
Yeah?
there's something about Julie you need to know.
Is this part of your making peace with things?
Yeah, it is.
Okay then. What is it?
It's about Julie and Stanford.
What about them?
You know, I've debated for a long time about telling you this or not. I honestly don't even know if I should now, but I've struggled with it for such a long time, and I feel the window of opportunity closing. Like if I don't tell you now and this chance passes, I'm just gonna regret it for the rest of my life.
And I can't force you to tell me, but once this story is out, that's it. This is your one chance. If you have something you think I need to know and you don't tell me, Can you live with that regret?
But it's not that easy. Not at all.
I already know how she met Stanford. He was a customer at the strip club, right?
Yeah. Used to go there every time he was in town. At least that's what Julie told me. A big tipper, too.
So, what is it then?
They started dating.
Like a legitimate relationship?
Yeah.
But he was married.
Yeah, not like I can judge that, right? Plus, doesn't seem to matter much, does it? Especially not with the elite.
And that's true, unfortunately. So, when did it start?
I don't know. Not for a while. She'd been working at the club for a few months. I didn't even remember her saying much about him, to be honest. It was just like one day she was dating this older guy and she was really into him.
What did that mean for the two of you? Were you two still a thing?
Pretty much like we always were, on and off.
That had to be hard.
It was, but it's not like I could say anything. I was living down here, married, with children. Who the hell was I to judge her?
I get that. Still, though, it couldn't have been easy.
Nah, it wasn't. I loved her. Loved her so goddamn much. It broke my fucking heart. But Julie needed to be happy. No, fuck that. She deserved to be happy. And I didn't want to be in the way of that. I knew she was lonely and dealing with life on her own. I knew she was always stressed, and she seemed really happy when she talked about him, like he was genuine and caring. I warned her away. I tried to, at least, but I don't think she ever heard me clearly.
Figured you were the jealous boyfriend type?
Probably. I tried to hide it because, I'll be honest, I was jealous. Like, it bothered me a lot. Affected my marriage, probably ultimately led to my divorce.
How so?
Because my mind was constantly on her. I was thinking about who she was with, what she was doing, where she was going, things like that. It was like, I don't know, like friggin' puppy love. I needed to know everything about her. Like, the fact that she was dating this guy somehow made me desire her more. Really weird, I know.
It makes sense. It's hard to watch loved ones move on.
And I didn't want her to move on. And I didn't like what he was making her become.
Making her become?
Yeah. What she was doing. That's when things started going really badly. She was already stripping and had moved into escorting up in Seattle. She didn't do it often, maybe 2 or 3 times a month that I know of, but she made so much damn money at it. There was no way I was talking her out of it. I couldn't. She wouldn't listen even when I tried. I don't know. I've never been in her situation. I've always had it pretty easy. Until now. So I try hard not to judge her and what she did. But it tore me up. Absolutely tore me up. I'll admit I kind of fell away then. For a while. Just wish I hadn't. I wish I'd been there for her.
Caleb, you can't regret.
Emerald, if I'd been there, she'd still be alive.
You don't know that. Things happen. For all we know, she could have...
That. You don't understand. You don't get it.
Then fill me in. What am I not getting?
He started getting really possessive.
When? After she started escorting?
Yeah. He didn't know she was escorting. She told him there was a club in Seattle that was paying better, a lot better, so she was going there to strip. Something about all the guys from Boeing, Microsoft, and Amazon having all that cash that just needed to be spent. But not a peep about escorting. I don't know all the details because she and I started talking less often. And even when we did talk, there was something different, like I was losing her. She stopped sharing as openly as she had before. Who knows? Maybe she regretted telling me about the escorting, so she was pulling back. I figured it had something to do with me and the fact that she thought I was jealous. Because I was. But I tried to hide that the best I could and just be there for her. Talk to her about all the things going on in her life, all the good things that were starting to happen. She was really a different person. She was happy again. It was almost like she was the person I fell in love with back in Syracuse. kind of threw me off.
How so?
Because I had this, I don't know, this turmoil internally, you know? On one hand, I was worried about her and what she was doing, but on the other hand, she was telling me all of these great things that were happening to her. It didn't feel right, but I had to keep reminding myself that if she was happy, then everything was okay. I was so fucking stupid.
Why? If everything was okay, if she was doing better for herself, then why did it matter? I think everyone would understand why you'd be jealous. That's pretty natural, but what makes you so critical of yourself?
Because if I had been paying attention, like really paying attention, I would have seen what was happening. I would have seen that things weren't as good as she said they were.
In what respect?
Because she wasn't happy.
She told you that. She said she wasn't happy? Because you've got me confused. You just got done telling me everything was looking up for her, that she was doing well for herself, and she was as happy as ever. And now you're making it sound like that's not what was going on. Can you understand why I'm a little confused?
She was happy.
Caleb, you're all over the place. What's going on?
It's really fucked up, Emerald. Really fucked up. On the outside, everything did look like it was getting better for her. I mean, she didn't have the time with the boys she wanted, but because of the money, she had a lot of freedom. She took sick leave from a state job to make sure that she could attend their school events and anything important they had going on. After a while, she was able to be choosy about when she would escort and when she wouldn't. She stayed away from holidays and any significant dates for her family, but she also gave up a lot to do that job. But then she started having real problems with Stanford. I think he suspected she was lying about everything.
He didn't know about her escorting at all?
No, he didn't. I don't know exactly how long it was before he found out. I don't even know how he reacted. She never told me. All I know is that every once in a while, when she was feeling a little stressed or whatever, it would slip out that he was pissed off. And it almost always had something to do with her second stripping job.
Her escorting? Maybe because she was gone so often. He grew suspicious, maybe. Did it cause problems between them?
That's putting it lightly. They got into fights about it. A lot. I'm not sure how bad it got. She never told me she was scared of him or anything, but man, there was something in her voice. I couldn't ever put my finger on it. It all makes sense now, though.
Why?
Because of what happened.
Caleb, what happened? Are you there?
I think you need to talk to Rachel.
Rachel? Why her?
Just go see her. Don't call her. Don't email her. Go see her.
Why can't you tell me? Hello? Caleb, listen, I'll go see her, but I need to know what you're talking about.
Don't worry. She knows. And she'll tell you everything. You'll understand after you talk to her. Thank you, Emerald.
For what?
For tolerating me. For shaking me out of my stupor. Helping me see clearly. I don't know. Name it. Just thank you for freeing me.
On September 19th, just 3 days after I had that conversation with him, Caleb Haskins took his own life. Earlier that morning, he convinced his wife to allow him to take the children to the daycare center. According to the reports I obtained, Caleb dropped them off at 9:15 in the morning. The records at the daycare center show that the children were checked in shortly after that time, and the daycare provider later told police that the entire morning stood out to her because not only did Caleb not usually drop the children off, but he never seemed as happy as he had that morning. She said he was usually quiet and reserved, not overly depressed or strange, just quiet. But on that morning, the last time he would see his children, She remembered him being happy, almost jovial. Everything else is an estimate based off of video footage and witness testimony. But somewhere around 11 o'clock in the morning, Caleb, sitting in his 2015 Chevy pickup, took a 9mm handgun he'd purchased for his wife only a few months earlier, put it to the roof of his mouth, and pulled the trigger. He didn't leave any notes. No message, no indication why he did what he did. He never told me why he wanted me to talk to Rachel, but I soon found out for myself. In fact, I understood why he wanted me to talk to her even before he called time on his life, before any of us knew he was gone. What I'm about to share with you is the most disturbing conversation about Julie I will feature in this podcast. It's the painful testimony of a woman who lost more than her best friend. She lost a part of herself. Again, I must warn you, listener discretion is advised. This interview, this last interview for Who Killed Julie, might be as disturbing as it is tragic.
Go ahead. Sit over there. Sorry about the mess.
Oh, it's okay. I dropped in on you unannounced.
It's fine. Plus, ever since Caleb called, I've kind of been waiting for you to come around.
So you know what this is about?
Yes. I guess it was only a matter of time before we got to this point. I should have known.
That's the problem, though. I don't know where we are. Caleb didn't give me anything. He said you would. Can you help me?
I'll try.
Caleb was insistent that I talk to you. I don't know what you have for me. I have no idea what questions to even ask or where to start. I had no idea you two were communicating. But whatever it is, I'm ready for it. What did he tell you when he called?
That you know everything about Julie.
Why didn't you tell me? How many times have we talked over these last few weeks? You had so many opportunities to fill me in on what she went through. You're her best friend. Knew her better than anyone in the world. You could have saved me a lot of time and effort.
This isn't about time or effort. It's not a matter of convenience. Not for me, it's not. We're talking about my best friend and all the shit she went through. If I'm being completely honest, I was hoping you'd give up. I thought between myself and Angela and the fact that Caleb is hundreds of miles away, you'd throw in the towel and refund that group of women their money. I had no idea you were this determined.
I've been underestimated my entire life. I thought I was pretty clear and straight with you from the beginning. This project was always going to happen. Her story was always going to be told. Nothing you have for me is going to change that. Then or now.
Well, that's because you have the luxury of not knowing. It's the beauty of ignorance, isn't it? It allows us to keep having hope in a hopeless world.
Don't you think that telling Julie's story will give people hope?
This? Hope in what? The grime? The disgusting shit that she was doing? What happened to her? Is that what you think is going to provide hope for people? There is no hope in any of this shit. If anything, the only thing you've done with this is peel back the curtain so everyone can see her scars. That's it. I don't even know how you can be proud of any of this. I told you from the beginning to stop prying into it. I told you to leave it alone. But you wouldn't. You fucking wouldn't. Just drop it.
Rachel, what is it? What am I prying into that's upset you? Everything about the murder came out in the news. I'm just trying to tell people the rest of the story. The people who are going to listen to this will care about Julie. The woman, the mother. They're going to identify with all of the struggle she had. Every single day, people deal with stuff just like Julie did. Sure, I'm not naive. I know some people are going to judge her for taking the stripping job or escorting, but I'm not worried about them. This is the reality of Julie's story. This is who she was. If anything, I think it shows her fortitude and her undying spirit to constantly fight. That's encouraging. That'll give others hope.
Yeah. Acting like a whore will give a ton of people hope. Really empowering for women in the 21st century, Emerald. Way to go.
You'd rather I lie about this? You'd rather I fabricated some story about what led up to Julie's disappearance? That's what you want for her?
No! I want her to be alive. I want her to be there for her boys. Instead of having them off in the South with that piece of shit of a father who's going to teach them all the wrong things about what it's like to be a man. I want her here. I want to be able to look over the cubicle and see her smiling face. I want all of those miserable bastards we worked with to have to suffer through the indignity of being in a better mood because Julie made people smile. I want to laugh with her. I want to share my struggles with her, and I want her love. That's what I fucking want. And I'll never get that now. All of that was taken away from me when she was.
Nothing I am doing is going to change that for you, Rachel. And I'm terribly sorry. Terribly, terribly sorry. But if there's anything that all of us are doing together, it's that we are telling the story of a courageous woman. An imperfect, but courageous woman.
A lot of people are going to judge her. They will say horrible things about her.
I know.
You understand that, don't you? You're a woman. You should get that.
I know they will. But there are people who will understand why she did what she did. They're going to see the courage, the true courage that woman had, to rise above everything she faced every single day. They're going to see the selflessness of her actions. You knew her. You knew what she was like. Please, help me tell that part of her story.
Ugh. I fucked up so much. She didn't like stripping, and she sure as hell didn't like escorting. But she needed the money. Tony, that piece of shit, he left her with so much debt. Just basically disappeared. For months, she didn't even know if he was alive or dead. Couldn't find him. Almost a year later, he starts contacting her again, looking to reconcile. I guess he felt pretty hard. Couldn't hold down a job to save his life, and the jobs he did have didn't pay for shit. She never got a penny. Never saw a damn penny from him. The only thing he gave her was a hard time and tens of thousands of dollars of debt that she had no idea how she was going to pay off. Oh, and a house that neither one of them could afford to buy in the first place, that she had to float all by herself. I understood. I didn't like it or agree with it, but I understood why she did what she did. The stripping helped her pay her bills. But the escorting? It was the escorting that helped her finally get above water. She actually paid off all her debt. She kept doing it. And we didn't talk for the longest time because I didn't understand why. I was so horrible to her. Instead of being a friend, instead of just being there for her and listening to her, I said some horrible, horrible shit. I called her terrible names. I was so goddamn mad. You're nothing more than a slut. A whore, I told her. I can still see her face. That will haunt me forever. Forever.
Why? What happened?
It was the last time I saw her. I called my best friend, the woman I would do anything for. I called her a slut and a whore. What kind of person does that?
You couldn't have known that then. Don't beat yourself up.
Yeah, I guess not. But that doesn't change the fact that I was an absolute monster toward her when she needed me most. She'd come to me for help and I basically spit in her face and left her out to dry. Alone. I will never forgive myself for that because when she disappeared, I could have stopped. I could have changed it. It's my fault. It's all my fucking fault.
How? What did you do?
No, I can't do it.
Can't do what, Rachel?
I can't tell you. I can't.
Can't what?
Caleb said that I had to come straight with you, that if I didn't, he would. I should have never trusted that son of a bitch, but I didn't know who else to go back to then. I thought Walter would lose his shit, kill the man, and end up in jail himself. And Angela? Oh, no. No. There was no way I was going to her. There was just Caleb. There was always Caleb. Knew I shouldn't have fucking trusted him.
Trusted him with what? What's going on?
Julie was being abused. Like, mentally and emotionally. I don't think she was ever beaten or anything like that. I don't know. Maybe he was beating her too. But he fucked with her mind. Bad.
Who? Who was abusing Julie?
That bastard. That fucking politician.
Stanford Wilson? You're talking about Stanford Wilson?
Yeah. That fucker.
He was abusing Julie? How do you know that for sure?
She met him when she was stripping and they had an affair. When she started escorting, she didn't tell him. She couldn't. He treated her decently, I guess. Set her up with a lot of shit and helped her boys get into a prestigious program. I think he even had a little bit of influence in the state, giving her opportunities she didn't ask for. That wasn't Julie. She wouldn't do that. But he didn't care. He just did what politicians do. All that slimy behind-the-scenes shit to get favors for people they like. Or people they're fucking. Didn't matter that it made Julie uncomfortable. When she started escorting, she told me he didn't want her stripping anymore, that he would take care of her and replace any of the income she'd lose out on. But Julie'd been there before. She'd already done that, depending on a man stuff, and she wasn't going back to it. She was never going to depend on a man. Ever again. That pissed him off. And that's when I told her to be careful. I asked her how well she knew him. I mean, he was already fucking cheating on his wife, but that damn woman didn't care. She was already screwing around with Caleb anyway. But when he started getting possessive and controlling and all that shit, I begged her. I pleaded with her to leave him, to just fucking walk away. She said she tried. She tried. But he wouldn't leave her alone. He didn't make huge scenes in the club or anything like that, but in private she felt pressured, really pressured her to do everything he asked. Demanded.
And that's why she didn't tell him about the escorting job.
He would have never allowed her to do it. He would have stopped her, I know it. So yeah, she didn't tell him. People, your listeners, they need to understand that when women are raised to believe archaic shit about their role in the world and how they're trained to be dependent on men, it really fucks us up as adults. She would do anything to not have to depend on a man ever again, Emerald. People need to get that. They need to fucking understand that. They don't need to be worrying about why she was still in love, never stopped loving a man from college who was married, or why she was having an affair with some married politician. That stuff isn't important. Because none of those people have ever walked a fucking foot in her shoes. She'd been shit on her entire life, and she was trying to get things right. She really was. She might not have been doing it in the way other people wanted, but she was trying. Which is way more than I can say about any asshole who is going to criticize her. So she didn't tell him about it, because that's what she needed to do for herself and her boys. She was at peace with it.
Did he ever find out? Rachel, what's going on? Did he ever find out about her escorting?
They had some kind of a fight. I don't know what happened. I will never know what happened to her. He found out. I don't know the whole story. I just know. Does it even matter anymore? I should have been there for her.
How do you know? I thought you said the last time you saw her was when she
called
needed...
me one day. After I was so horrible to her, she called on me when she needed me, and I wasn't there for her. I don't even remember how many days after it was. I was busy. We were at a soccer game. I'll never forget it. I picked up my phone and I saw it was her, and I was still so pissed. Can you imagine ignoring a phone call from your best friend because you're mad about what they are doing with their lives? So fucking self-centered. So worried about what I wanted for other people that I didn't even answer the damn phone. I hung up before it even vibrated twice. Didn't even think about it. Not even a second thought. I was so goddamn stubborn and so mad that hanging up on her was one of the easiest things I've ever done. I can't believe it. I can't believe I acted like that.
Maybe she just wanted to make up. Maybe it bothered her, the way that you two parted.
It was the last time I heard from her. It was the last time anyone heard from her.
What?
She called me. And then she disappeared. I read everything that was ever published about her. Every detail I could get my hands on, from the police all the way to those stupid true crime bloggers. If it was about Julie, I consumed it. I mean, we'll never know for sure, but their time frame for everything, that phone call was right before they think she disappeared. No one else ever came forward with any information indicating they talked to her after she called me. Not that I know of.
It was the last time anyone ever heard Julie's voice? What did she say to you?
Nothing. Already told you I didn't answer. I hung up on her. I didn't even check my messages that night because I wanted to avoid her. I wasn't there for her when she needed me. I let her die alone and scared. I was so fucking stubborn I didn't even know that I had a voicemail. My husband had to point it out to me. I went to bed early that night and left my phone on the coffee table. I was still awake, reading, when he brought it up to me. But I already knew who it was from. It was her. So I didn't listen. I got up the next morning and got ready for work, just like normal. And that stupid voicemail icon taunted me. Tried to ignore it. Made it through almost the entire workday, too. And then finally broke down and listened. It was from Julie, of course. She'd called me and I'd ignored her, so she wasn't going to not leave a message that just wasn't her style. That's why I avoided it. I knew she wanted to talk things out. She was so predictable. The voicemail? She was with Stanford. At the house he rented for the times when he had to come out here. Emerald. It was the last time she talked to anyone. And I wasn't there for her.
You're putting a lot of pressure on yourself. Listen, you can't be completely sure that that was her last phone call. Don't be so hard on yourself, Rachel. That's not fair to you.
Oh, if you heard it, you would know too.
But this would have come out in the investigation.
I never told anyone. Well, except Caleb. You're the only other person who knows. Her parents, Walter, doesn't even know.
You never gave it to the authorities?
I couldn't. It was... I just couldn't. He's a powerful man, Emerald. I've got a family to protect. I couldn't.
What's in the voicemail? What did Julie say? Come on. You told me for a reason. Caleb wanted you to tell me for a reason. This has to be important. I need to know, Rachel. We've come this far. Let's finish Julie's story. Together.
Here.
What's this?
An SD card.
What's on it?
The voicemail.
You saved the voicemail?
Yeah.
After all these years?
Made 50 copies, to be exact. Caleb has 5 copies. I've got a couple stashed in safe places. Now you have one.
But 50? Why?
Listen to it. You'll understand. You'll understand everything.
As you just heard, Rachel gave me an SD card, And on that card was an MP3 of the voicemail Julie left that inauspicious afternoon. This is the first and last time you will hear Julie's voice. What you're about to hear are likely the last moments of Julie's life. Discretion is advised.
Rachel! Rachel, are you there? Please pick up. He found out. He knows. I need you to call me. Please. Please call me. I'm going to keep my phone right next to me. I need to leave tonight.
Open this fucking door. Open it now.
He's scaring me, Rachel.
Unlock this
Can
fucking
you
door.
come get me? Please.
Open the fucking door. Open it. God damn it, open it. I will fucking kill you.
Please.
Do you hear me?
Rachel,
What are you doing?
I need you.
In May 2013, Stanford Wilson was investigated for taking bribes. The investigation lasted for a year and centered around the passing of a controversial law that allowed the use of questionable genetically modified seed technology. In January 2015, Stanford Wilson was convicted and imprisoned. But that's not where Stanford's story departs from Julie's, if their lives could ever be truly separated. That would be the night in December 2013, the same night that Julie McLemore disappeared. The night he killed Julie. There was an investigation after I turned over the evidence Rachel gave me. It changed everything. None of us will ever know why he did what he did, but Stanford Wilson ultimately confessed to killing Julie that night. He had found out about her escorting, and in a jealous rage fueled by the stress of already being under investigation for taking bribes, he's on record admitting to having snapped. They got into a vicious argument. He was livid, and Julie hiding from him in a closet only enraged him more. He tore the house apart looking for her. And when he found her, he started beating her. Julie escaped as far as the driveway before Stanford caught her. According to court records, he then dragged her back inside and beat her so severely that she became unconscious. Stanford is on record as having claimed he was in a red rage and didn't stop. He kept hitting and kicking her limp body, strangling her, fracturing her skull, and breaking her neck. He let her die right there, on the floor of the house he rented for his trips to serve on the Washington State Senate. And then he dumped her body in Gulf Harbor, hoping she'd be washed out to sea. Throughout the trial, he never showed remorse. He's now waiting out his capital punishment sentence at Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla. Rachel told me she's now at peace with the fallout from her actions. She was given probation and community service. She told me later that she used Julie's spirit to turn those consequences into a positive. Sucking it up like a champ, she said. She began volunteering at Olympia's Safe Place Crisis Clinic, which she had a lot more time for after she was terminated by her state employers. she's a different woman now. It wasn't easy, everything she's been through with the trials and the scrutiny, but she's come out on the other end okay. Actually, she's admitted she's happier, and I'm happy for her. As far as Angela is concerned, well, she never spoke to me again, so I can't really tell you how all of this impacted her. Hopefully, she found the peace she needs. Walter? Oh, Walter. He sold his house a few months ago and moved to Alaska. Can you believe that? Alaska? He told me he'd always wanted to live there. It's the last frontier in the world, he said, before going into a 30-minute description of the herd of deer he feeds on a daily basis. Walter feels guilty about it, saying that if he dies before his time, those deer are screwed. His word, not mine. But that caring for them gives him a sense of purpose. And I don't think any of us can fault him for that, can we? Remember Roderick Alba, the first man convicted of Julie's murder who hung himself in his prison cell? He maintained his innocence all along and pleaded with Julie's family to believe him. He met with Walter in person to try to guide Walter towards Julie's true killer. The man who never got the justice he sought? Well, that's only part of Roderick Alba's story. A story that's actually quite interesting. During my time working on Julie's story, I learned a lot about Roderick and found his story to be intriguing. Intriguing enough for me to begin exploring now that we finished Julie's story. But this is where we say goodbye to Julie. If there's anything that comes out of doing this, I hope it's that anyone who listens to it understands and appreciates it for its complexity. In a world where it's so easy to pass judgment on others, to categorize them and demonize them by superficial standards, the color of their skin, their gender identification, the way they walk and the way they talk, their profession. We live in a world with increasing rapidity and decreasing attention and empathy. It's a world where we feel justified in judging others and their struggles while ignoring our own. If anything, I hope that Julie's story serves as an example of the complex difficulty of existing in an unforgiving world. Julie McLemore was a single mother of 2 wonderful boys who may never get a fair chance at life, even though she did everything in her power to give them what she, herself, never had. She struggled constantly, just like most of us, and worked hard for the breaks and opportunities others had, the breaks she wanted for herself and her children. She excelled academically because of her work ethic, and she always gave and thought of others first. She made mistakes, but who doesn't? Her actions may be questionable to some of you, and that's okay, because Julie did what she needed to do so her children had a fighting chance in a world that's too busy to care about other people. We understand so much about human nature, yet we know so little. We claim that we embrace diversity, grace, and empathy, but we still hold tightly to archaic perspectives and opinions about women's sexuality, while ignoring the inconsistent bias of morality. We want to demonize people like Julie for what she did, and we do the same to those who have fallen into prostitution as a means of survival, all the while ignoring the factors that drive the demand for these services. We claim we understand human nature, but even a brief look at Julie's life through this 7-part series shows that we don't. We're not even close. Julie made such a positive impact on so many people. I couldn't possibly include all of them in this series, but if you look closely, if you listen closely to the testimony of the people closest to her, you'll see just how beautiful of a person she was. You'll see the gift to the world that was Julie McLemore. She may not have been perfect, but she loved others. She may have acted in ways that you personally disagree with, but couldn't the same be said about you by those who know you best? She may have done things that you find repulsive, but have you not repulsed at least one person by something you did in order to get ahead? In order to survive? Isn't the very nature of the human experience relative? The story of Julie is an excellent reminder that all of us share this existence, that we all face struggles and demons we often struggle with alone. We do it out of necessity, to remain safe from judgment and exclusion by those we would hope we could depend on in times of need. If we accept the terms of Julie's life, if we are patient and empathetic and try to understand why she was who she was, maybe then there can be hope for us. If we do that, if we see each other in that light, then maybe we can begin to grow. Maybe we can begin to heal. I hope this 7-part series will do that for you. For us. The story of Julie is the story of us. It's the human story. A beautiful tragedy. If you enjoyed this featured series, be sure to stay subscribed to this RSS feed so you can get updates when my next series is ready. We'll explore Roderick Alba's story, because his story is the story of us. You've been listening to Who Killed Julie? I'm Emerald Johnson. Thank you for listening, and as always, keep questioning.
Who Killed Julie is written and edited by Paul Sading. You can find more about me and my books and other audio drama podcasts, my writing podcast, over at paulsading.com. It is produced and sound designed by the excellent Dog and Pony Studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. They are also the company that produced the second season of Subject Found. You can find them at dogandponystudios.net. Emerald Johnson was played by the one and only, the absolutely wonderful and highly talented audiobook narrator, Ashley Litzy. You can find more about Ashley, her work, and her services over at deepcurvesahead.com. Angela Morrison was Robin Siegerman. You can find Robin and her books over at robinsiegerman.com. Rachel Leonard is the one and only Rihanna McAfee. You can find her on twitter.com/ReMcAfee. John McClane of Dog and Pony Studios played Walter McLemore. You can find him at dogandponystudios.net. Christopher Rocco, Olympia-based actor, played Caleb Haskins. You can find Caleb's live performances by checking out the schedule at olitheater.com. And Lauren Wisniewski played the customer in episode 2. She's a wonderful voice actor who you can find at lawofalltrades.wordpress.com. I want to give a special thanks to Amy Joy Hilt, who beta read for this podcast, volunteered her services, and really helped me tweak it to make sure that it was ready and appropriate for the material. Amy is a teacher in England and sometimes writer, and I want to thank Amy for her help. This show wouldn't have been what it is without her. If you want to find more about my stories, if you want exclusive stories, if you want insights, special posts, live messaging, early and exclusive access, stories that no one else is going to hear, and you really like what I'm doing with Who Killed Julie, you want to see the second part of this series happen, become a patron. Go over to patreon.com/pulsating, pick a reward level that works for your budget and the exclusives that you want, and help me start funding the next show in this series. You can also find this show, pulsating.com/who-killed-Julie, where you can find all of the wonderful actor bios. It's on Libsyn, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play. The show is also on Facebook and Twitter, as am I. You can find me at Paul Sading or at Who Killed Julie. The artwork is done by the wonderful Kessie Relinicki, who does all of my book covers and podcast covers. And of course, that music that is absolutely perfect for this show was done by none other than John Eric de Guzman of Dog and Pony Studios. Thank you for your download and your listen. Please tell a friend about the show. Please help us spread this important message, this important story. Julie's story. The story of us. Music in these credits is provided by Richard Temple.